Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by, TC and Friends. Monday Night Musings. You guys are in for a treat tonight. I have Andrew Isker. I'm going to say his name wrong at least 1,000 times. He's going to be joining me here in a little bit, and we may have a special surprise guest. Andrew's co-author of their book on Christian Nationalism. Looks like it might work out. We'll go with that. Bear with me here for just a second. I have an announcement I need to make, and I gotta double check something here. My day has been a rush. And all right, there we go. We're waiting on the guest, like I said. And yeah, anyway, so merchandise, folks. This is a huge thing right now, especially it's Christmas. Is what an what are you talking about, OG? Is what an icon or a picture? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, yeah, here we go. Merchandise, got these nice little shot glasses. We got my mugs. Got these mason jars for drinking out of. I got this nice little shot glass and tumblers. And yeah, so some of you are aware that I have done fundraisers in the past, and I am doing another one. I haven't done one for a while since my 22-0 fundraiser back in, oh gosh, it's been, let's see, it was my second episode of TC and Friends Monday Night Musings. And that went well. Juan from Right American Media did matching funds on that, and Kim and his wife, who make my merchandise, not the coffee, did matching funds on that as well. And so I'm doing another fundraiser on my friend Dana's GoFundMe, or excuse me, Give Send Go probate attorney fund for her fight over her mom's illness that resulted in her passing, and it might be related to the COOF and COOF protocols. And I decided I was going to do this fundraiser for her to help raise the $3,000 for the probate attorney. And the reason that I'm doing that is because this is a groundbreaking case in Florida, and a lot of people have mistakenly thought that Florida was this paragon and place of solace for free thinkers, that it was a safe state for people to be in. And the problem is that corporate medicine, the medical industrial complex, did as much damage in Florida as it's done everywhere else. Dana's case may break the ice on that. And she's got a lot of people working with her, but she has to have a probate attorney. And this probate attorney is willing to work with her, but there still has to be a retainer, basically. And it's $3,000. And Dana and her significant other have a house full of kids. She is fostering her nephews. she's fostering her a dog that's part of the family. She has her father living with her, and so she's got a lot of things going on. Plus, she's got this fight over her mom's situation that she's dealing with, and so I said, hey, let me see what I can do here. And so last week I announced that I would be doing a 15% donation towards her fund of all the merchandise that I sell and all of my YouTube proceeds and all of my Subscribe Star proceeds going forward until the end of January. And that's been well received. When I made that announcement, she had a $25 pot on her Give Send Go, and so far we're up to 200 and let's see, where are we at with that? Right as of right now, she's at $285. So in a week, you guys have stepped up and helped. And it's bumped it up to 285. So here's what I'm going to do, and this is a promise from me. For every person who donates $100 or more to Dana's Give Send Go for her probate attorney fund, I will be giving a $15 credit towards any merchandise that I offer right now, whether it be the sweatshirts or the beanies that are coming up or any of this, or basically a bag of coffee. The shipping will be on me, and you're going to get a bag of coffee or $15 credit towards anything that I have until the end of January. If you do donate directly to Dana's Give Send Go, and then send me a screenshot or proof of that in a private message or in an email, tcpearson@protonmail.com. If you do that, $100 or more, you get a $15 credit towards anything that I have on my platform as far as merchandise. That's how important this case is. It is an absolutely groundbreaking case when it comes to the COOF. I don't think you guys understand. I have asked her a lot of hard questions. It's not an easy situation for her, and it's a valuable fight. And so I would encourage you guys, if you have it in you, and if you can't do $100, if you can do $5, that's awesome. And then you reach out to me and let me know. Maybe we can work something out. But the promise is a $100 donation or more towards her Give Send Go for her probate attorney fund. We will talk. You can pick some merchandise. You can say, no, just send me a bag of coffee. Shipping's on me. If you do the coffee, the shipping's on me, and you get the bag of coffee. If you choose merchandise, if it's less than $15, then the shipping's still on me. Shipping's on me no matter what. So you guys can't lose on this. And that goes through until the end of January. So that's TC's way. That's my way here at Minnesota Black Robe Regiment of giving to a cause that is incredibly important to us here in the U.S. And really it's important, I think, in a lot of ways towards everybody in the world when we think about what we've been through over the last 2.5 years. So I was getting ready to bring Andrew in, and he disappeared. Let's see if he's texted me to explain himself. These pastors of small Minnesota towns, you can't rely on them for anything. He's having internet connection issues. So, yeah, we'll just, I'll keep filling air. And so if you guys aren't aware, and I will, let's see here. Let me put the link in the chat. I don't know if this works very well. Copy link. There we go. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Tomsky, this is your This is your gimme. TC, can an atheist be in the chat for this? Yes, but you have to automatically double any super chat comment from or any comment from this point forward has to be a double of your super chats in the past. So if you start out with $1 super chat, if you want to make some sort of atheist comment, Tomsky, then you are required to make a second comment, and then you have to do at least $2. So if you start off with a $5 super chat to make an atheist comment, Tomsky, then you automatically have to go to like 10, pound sterling. That's how this works. We are somebody says censorship. Yes, you are being censored. Well, you're a pirate. Arr. So yeah, anyway, I'm waiting. Andrew is having Minnesota internet issues. So I did put the link to the Give Send Go in the chat here. I will also have it in the description of the video. And I will go and put it in the description of the video right now, actually. So you guys can bear with me. We're waiting on Andrew to come back. It is now in the description of the video. I promise it is there. And let me see if I come back and see. Andrew's still not back. Andrew's back. We're going to bring him in while we can. This is what happens, Andrew. I'm going to say this while you're off camera and I see your mic's on, so you can try and argue with me. This is what happens when you drink cheap macro brew beer 2 months prior to coming on my show.
Oh yeah, you're not gonna let me hear the end of that. That's good.
No, you had all these really nice. What did you have a picture of? You had a picture of like some really nice wine, and I think it was a really nice bottle of bourbon or something, and then like cheap, like Bush Light.
Bush Light, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had we had a bunch of different pizzas, and we were pairing, different things with the pizza, and that one had venison sausage, so it had that Bush Light. And what can I say?
No, you didn't. You could have had any German beer. Any German beer. I know there's not a Trader Joe's near you, or is there one in Mankato?
No, there's not.
I know there's not
cities,
but there's got to be a liquor store somewhere that will allow a rough-necked pastor like yourself to come in and buy a good reformed German beer.
Well, I like all different kinds, so it's okay. It's all right. I was taking a break from the Hefeweizen and the Dunkel and all the other German beers. So.
Dunkel, he says. Dunkel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew is with us, as you can see. Andrew, you have, along with your co-author, have sparked a bit of a firestorm with your book. You want to tell us a little bit about your book and ladies and gentlemen, the title and the link to get the book through Amazon or Audible is in the description of the video. And Christian or atheist, agnostic, spiritualist, whoever you might be, left wing, right wing, a striker on a soccer team, whoever you might be, excuse me, for those of you in Europe, football, you are going to want to read or listen to this book, because even if you disagree, it's going to help you understand what Christian nationalism is. And and I did go through the book today. The first half of my day, I went through the entire book, and it was profound in that I found places where I was like, and there were other places where I'm like, yep, that's exactly how I see things. And there was other places where I'm like, what? And and one of the lines I think at the beginning of the book was about kind of the idea of forced conversion. a lot of people see Christian nationalism as this way of forcing Christianity onto an entire region or an entire nation or republic, and kind of through the threat of force. And I can understand that because there was a time within Christianity where there was like, we're going to move in, you're going to become Christian. And that's the way it's going to be. And one of the lines, and I don't know if it was you, Andrew, or Andrew, because if you guys aren't confused, the two authors of the book both have the first name of Andrew. And I don't know who wrote it, but you had said, because of the Christian view of free will, we would never advocate for forcing people to embrace Christianity. And yet much of the book comes from a very, and I don't know if it's intentional or it's just the nature of the way you guys do things, but it comes from a very reformed perspective. And so I'm intrigued because I've talked an awful lot about libertarian not the political philosophy, but libertarian free will as it relates to Christianity, and how I patently reject libertarian free will. While it's not normally a topic of conversation for my shows or for my channel, it's definitely something that does pop up early on in your book. And so can you give us a little bit of an introduction as to or explanation of what you mean about that as it relates to Christian nationalism? And then let's go from there.
Yeah. That part I think was Torba's chapter. But I think I could speak for him because he comes from a fairly reformed perspective as well. And so the way I would describe it is the Christian view of free will, as he means it there, is not delving into the debate between Calvinists and Arminians or any of that, or you mentioned, libertarian free will as a theological concept. It's not so much, getting into those weeds necessarily. It's more a person has to voluntarily believe, from a human perspective, at least, without being coerced into faith, right? You can't, a person doesn't believe because a gun is pointed at their heads, right? That doesn't make a person a Christian. So yeah, I guess I can see how it might be confusing.
In honor of my friend Tomsky, who asked before you could see it, can an atheist be in the chat for this? I will back up my buddy Tomsky, who, by the way, provided this wonderful microphone to the show, and who's actually been on the show as well. I will back up my buddy Tomsky and say there are lots of atheists in foxholes. So even pointing a gun at a person in a foxhole will not make them convert. And if they do convert because you're pointing a gun at them, at best, it's a spurious conversion. At worst, you're just going to have an upset atheist friend. So,
I would agree for sure.
So, are you a stander by nature? Because I can tell you're standing.
Yeah, I need to. I got to stand.
Okay. Are you going to fall asleep if you sit down? You didn't have to drink. You didn't have to drink half a bottle of wine to do the show.
No. No, I drank a bang before this too, so I'm good.
Oh, wow. That's like some sort of weird Southern Minnesota speedball thing you got going on there. Wine and a bang. When you look at Christian nationalism, and as much as the topic of Christian nationalism has come up in the U.S. since 2016, everybody was quick to jump on the derisive bandwagon and talk about Christian nationalism in the perspective of, you can't be, you can't be talking about nationalism and Christianity. The two things cannot be linked. You can't have them. It's against the doctrine of Scripture. It's against Christianity. It's Jesus would not approve. I'm not an American. I'm a Christian first, and I think there's a reality in which a Christian is a Christian first, but that doesn't separate you from your nation of origin, and you guys go to great lengths in the book to talk about Christian nationalism not being about ethnicity or skin pigmentation or melanin count or anything like that, gender or sexuality, in as it's perceived in the broader world, especially through the legacy media. But there is a question, I think, that's rightly asked by even Christians. We're like, okay, how do you shape Christian nationalism through the lens of Scripture without
Hmm.
embracing a worldly perspective?
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of the prime question. The the first thing I would say would probably be the we have to back up a little bit because I think the water in which we swim, like we're fish, in contemporary evangelicalism today, is very Gnostic and pietistic, where it wants to separate out spiritual things from material things, and material things are bad. Life on earth is bad. People will say things where I'm a soul in a body. I'm not a body, or whatever. I'm a body with a soul. Stuff like that. And that's kind of just the air that we breathe. And so you have to step back from that and think, okay, we've had 2,000 years of Christian history, and this perspective actually is something that's novel, is an aberration compared to what Christians thought even 150 years ago. That kind of perspective would be pretty uncommon. You would think, okay, you're Christian, and you're living in a society that is mostly Christian. How should you live then? Right? It would then follow. All right. Well, we need to have government and laws and a way of life that is in accordance with how God wants us to live. Whether or not literally every single person in the society is definitely a Christian and has faith and is going to go to heaven. The society as a whole, majority overwhelmingly is Christian, and so you have to live as Christians. We've really adopted this kind of secularist view that, oh, government, that's for Satan to have. Jesus doesn't want that. He doesn't want us to pass laws that don't kill babies, for instance, or don't chop off the genitals of children. I don't know if I could say that on YouTube, but get you banned here. But like that's the thing. Like, and so it runs into conflict when Christians like us, and probably a lot of your Christian listeners and people that you read my book and listen to the stuff I have to say online. They instinctively know that killing 1 million babies a year is bad. That all of the trans stuff is not good. All of those things, like they have a reaction to it, and there's some cognitive dissonance there, because you have that on the one hand where they know this is wrong, we got to do something about this, and then on the other hand, it's like, well, I've been trained my entire life to think Jesus doesn't care about government or political power or any of those things, and wanting those things is probably sinful. And that's not the way that Christians really anywhere thought for the majority of the history of the church, or how
How
they
would you
interpreted Jesus' words. Yeah.
how would you respond then to an individual who brings up the idea that, well, Jesus isn't interested in government, he's not interested in politicians, he's not interested in votes, and he's not interested in elections, things like that. But then we turn around and we read Romans 13. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
my brain's freezing up on me. First Peter 2.
First Peter. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
First Peter 2, where we see Peter addressing proper view of government. We see Paul addressing a proper view of government.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the same people who have this pietistic, incredibly, what they view as an incredibly holy view of how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, also then quote Romans 13 and First Peter 2 and use it as a battering ram or
Yeah.
a bludgeon or a cudgel
Mm-hmm.
to beat on other Christians and say, no, you have to submit to government at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say things like, well, when Peter wrote or when Paul wrote, they were living under Nero and nothing's as bad as Nero. And I'm
No,
like
not
what?
now is worse. Right now is way worse than Nero. Well, let's get that out of the way. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I agree because we may not see here in the let's look at places. So we got Tomsky watching from the UK. We've got other people from here in the States and probably some others in different areas who are going to watch this from around the world. People are like, well, come on, really? Nero isn't worse than what you had? Well, yeah, well, Nero wasn't doing some of the underhanded shenanigans or even out in the open shenanigans
Yeah.
that we see happening with elected servants or bureaucrats today. They still did a lot of stuff behind the scenes and kind of undercover while they were persecuting Christians.
Yeah.
And that's that's a kind of a hard position. It's a hard shift for people because a lot of what you say in the book is really kind of a slap in the face to modern American Christianity.
Yeah, it is. But we need to have that slap in the face. Like we need it badly. Because look at what has happened, especially in the last 50 years. You see the decline of American society, the attack on the family, the attack on the fundamental building blocks of civilization itself. And you think, why did this happen? Well, what happened during the last 50 years in the church? And the church has been more interested in building big mega churches and getting rear ends in seats and doing marketing surveys and doing church growth and not discipling our nation, right? Not teaching Christians how God wants them to live, what God thinks about these things. And this whole mindset, this pietistic mindset that God doesn't really care about these things. Anytime the subject comes up, people talk about, if you just search the trending term, it trends all the time now because of our book. And then my friend Stephen Wolfe, his book on Christian Nationalism, it's constantly trending on Twitter, and you click on that trend and it's all these people that are saying, what is it, like John 19:27, Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. So that means that if
I recognize
government,
the kindred spirit of sarcasm.
Yeah, that's my kingdom's not of this world, man. And so if the government says they want to put an experimental vaccine in you or mRNA and stuff, like if they want to do that, then you just have to do it because Jesus doesn't care. Like he's just indifferent to all of this stuff. He's indifferent to 1 million babies a year getting killed. He's indifferent to all of these evils. Is what that means, right? When they use it that way. It's like I just want to like drive a stake through the heart of that view of things, because it is just not like the whole rest of the Bible is against that view, of John 19:27.
You brought up abortion a few minutes ago, and then you just kind of mentioned it again. And my friend Tomsky Pirate, as he says, I have an argument that atheism has a stronger position against abortion than religion. We think that we have one life and no afterlife, and thoughts on that. And when Tomsky asks this, trust me, I know him well enough to know this is a legit question. This isn't a guy.
He's not trolling or anything like that. No.
No, he'll troll. Trust me.
It seems like a genuine question, though. So
it is a genuine pushback. And I think from my perspective, Tomsky's making a really good point, because there is a reality in which the broader church, I've euphemistically coined the phrase Western Christian culture, to address a lot of what I have complained about for years, but especially over the last 2.5 years here in the States, Tomsky's got a valid point, because you ask your average Christian today, are you pro-life? And by the way, I'm not pro-life. I'm an abolitionist. I adamantly oppose the pro-life movement, because the pro-life movement makes its money off of extenuating or extending abortion through incrementalism. It does very little to actually combat abortion. And so when pro-abortion people argue for abortion by saying, well, why aren't you doing more fostering and more adopting? 98% of the time, they're right. A lot of Christians will talk about how they're anti-abortion or pro-life, but will do little by way of stepping in and helping somebody who's in need. And so I think Tomsky actually does have a really good point, that a lot of atheists that I know that do have a pro-life position, who are against abortion and are okay with legislation that would end abortion, are saying what he's saying here, which is, we see life as precious because it's one life. And now we could have an argument about a person's epistemological perspective on why they have that view, but a lot of Christians wouldn't know how to answer that.
Yeah. I mean, my first thing would, in addressing it, would my immediate go-to would be, well, Christians do believe in an afterlife, and it's not we aren't annihilated upon death. We don't disappear. Our consciousness doesn't disappear from existence like an atheist would believe. We believe in either heaven or hell, and this is a great crime against God that cries out for vengeance. And there is the reality of hell, that people who do this and do not repent of it, they're condemning themselves to an eternity of conscious torment. So that's worse than just only having one life and then it disappears and it's snuffed out and it's done and that's it. We believe in eternity, and that's forever. And so that's on the one hand. On the other hand, it's the question. I think a lot of Christians, in how they haven't thought through abortion and the issues. That there's so many that haven't even gotten to the point where they view it as murder, right? They don't view it as murdering a human life. And if we want to back up there, like, the church has not done a good job teaching our people that this is indeed killing a human being. This isn't just this isn't some women's health thing. Like, here in Minnesota, I'm sure the rest of the country, it was this way. Every commercial ad on TV was about abortion for 6 months. And so, and it was, it was always, women kind of teary-eyed saying, oh, if I wasn't able to kill my offspring,
Scott Jensen is going to take away your right to medical freedom.
To be able to murder your child. And so, like, it was, even that too, like, to go on a rabbit trail, that whole campaign, I had a conversation briefly with not a pro-life activist, but I didn't think he would call himself that. He would be similar to your view, I think. And I was just dismayed. I'm like, why didn't these people attack back? Why didn't they say, no, I'm not the extreme one here. Tim Walz wants babies to be, murdered up to the point of birth, and then if they escape the birth canal, to die on the hospital floor. Like, that's what Tim Walz wants. Do you want that happening in our state? That's extreme. Like, he wants to literally murder babies, and you think that's fine, right? That's what this election is. Make it about that. I don't care.
You guys kind of address that in the book, and just so you guys know, if you haven't figured out through the name dropping yet, Andrew's co-author is also Andrew, but it's Torba, who is the founder of Gab, if I understand the historicity of it. And he founded that specifically as a response to censorship in social media and whatnot, and then subsequently experienced a lot of censorship for
Mhm.
starting a platform that was about censorship.
Mhm.
But you guys address that in the book, that when the decision on Roe v. Wade and
Dobbs.
Dobbs, yeah, when Dobbs came down, that there were a lot of churches who
Mhm.
refused to even address it,
Yeah.
who wouldn't talk about it, and even went so far as to say, "Now we understand that a lot of you are excited about this, but not everyone's excited about this." And I experienced that myself,
Mhm.
somewhat locally, where I actually heard that. But that's not what we're here for. We're here because, and um, you guys patently said very specifically,
Mhm.
if you're in a church that isn't celebrating the overturning
Mhm.
of Roe v. Wade and Dobbs, then you need to flee.
Yeah. 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 Whole chapter on that, and I think it's true. I mean, but it's an example of that same mindset, both of you know the church as this sort of religious marketing business is how a lot of churches actually operate. That they never ever want to say something that might offend somebody. They never want to engage in culture war. They never want to speak the truth because the truth is exclusionary. It pushes people away, and that's really if your entire model is we want to get as many people in the seats as possible. Then we are going to say the most bland, inoffensive stuff is that we possibly can. And when I mean I saw this in a number of churches all over, um, where Dobbs happened, and you would either get silence, they wouldn't say anything at all. Not, I mean, the thing, and people in their pews or cushy chairs, whatever they have in their car, in their sanctuary, they didn't say anything at all. It's just another Sunday. You're playing your music, and you have your sermon and the offering, and then some more music, and then everybody goes home. And nothing got said. And all over the country. Or even worse than that is when they did address it, they did say something, and what they said was, there's a lot of women mourning right now, and we should just really weep with those who weep, and really, be sensitive to the people who are very sad right now that they can't have their baby's arms torn off in the womb.
There's your
It's like,
there's your Pauline like sarcasm again. Um, so what do you say to someone like Tomsky? Because it's also something that you address that in the book, that you like Christian nationalism doesn't exclude anybody. It doesn't say if you're not
yeah,
Christian, you can't be in the U.S. You can't, or in
yeah,
England, because you guys
yeah.
focus quite a bit about the Christian heritage of England,
Hmm.
um, because it is such a springboard for the Christian heritage of the United States. But how do you look
Hmm.
at someone like Tomsky? And I'm
Hmm.
glad he's watching, because he's really giving me a
Hmm.
springboard here.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
which he always does when he can stay awake long enough, because it's like, what is it, Tomsky, like 2 in the morning
Yeah.
over
Wow.
there?
Yeah.
Uh, well, if you know Tomsky, he sleeps once every 6 months. So, uh, what do you say to someone like Tomsky? You're like, hey, look, I realize you're not a Christian, but you're welcome to be here, and we can even fight the same fight together. But
Mhm.
because Andrew, I don't know
Mhm.
how much you've watched any of my content. You and I have
Mhm.
obviously chatted, and we've interacted on Facebook
Yeah.
till I got nuked from
Yeah.
orbit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but and I've had a lot of interactions with a couple of your congregants, Bree in particular,
Hmm. Hmm.
who's watching, who said your congregation's been growing. By the way, she said it's been
Yes.
uh, really
Yeah.
growing, which is
Yeah.
encouraging.
God's blessing us. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it might have something to do with the boldness in the pulpit, but
Yeah.
how do you interact with a Tomsky who I've said I've
Hmm.
stood shoulder to shoulder at protests and
Hmm.
events with,
Hmm.
in one particular case, a gay black Muslim who's also a constitutional originalist conservative.
Well, that's quite a combo. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, and but a lot of the people that you and I are
Hmm.
talking about not in a judgmental way, but we're referring to, would not have
Yeah.
one if they did go to a protest. If they
Yeah.
looked over and they saw a gay black Muslim, they'd be like, "Oh, I can't be here. That person's
Yeah.
not holy."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And you know how they're going to react to a pirate who's an atheist.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think to speak to, I mean, some of it is, it's a question. I mean, it's two questions really. It's where are we at today? And really, a lot of this today is both of these questions, right? It's where are you currently, and where do you want to be, right? Those are the two questions that we face with regard to Christian nationalism. Because I mean, I saw people like after the election, right, this like absolutely brain dead take that they would have, which was be like, well, I guess Christian nationalism didn't work because the GOP didn't win 400 seats in Congress and 90 senators and stuff like that. It's like what are you talking about? Like this is a 500-year project at least or longer. I mean, this is a long-term thing. So some of that is, all right, we want to, you have this vision of, okay, if you could snap your fingers and make everything how it should be or how you would like it to be within reason, what would it look like, right? What's the goal that you're striving towards, right? That you might not reach until 7 or 8 generations from now, right? So that's on the one hand, and then on the other hand is where are we at right currently, and how do you put with that vision from way into the future? How do you act to go toward that goal? And so I look at the folks that are in our country, because we're really in this. If I think about like just specifically the United States, but really the whole West, the UK, Europe, is this apostate Christian place, apostate Christian nations. They were nations that were Christian nations, where the Bible, where the church, where Christian tradition is what had influence over their entire way of life, the way their kings ruled, the way their people lived on a day-to-day basis. All of it was founded in Scripture and in the Bible and in the church. And so that has obviously changed, right? We have collectively rejected that as a nation to different degrees, and so how do you go from that to where we are? Because it's a different situation than I think the church has ever really been in our entire history, because we've always been converting pagan nations that have never been Christian into with the gospel into being Christians and into being Christian nations. And now it's a totally different thing, I think, a different category of a people who were once Christian and now aren't anymore. It's a different thing than just believing in Odin or Zeus or something.
Right. But I'm going to pin you down a little bit.
Okay.
How do you partner with an atheist who agrees with you on everything other than religion?
Yeah.
Because I can almost guarantee you that you and Tomsky would disagree about quality of beer, but would agree.
Did you get warm over there? Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't drank there with Tomsky. But you guys might disagree on a philosophical level about religion and whatnot. But how do you partner with the Tomsky in a fight for liberty? Because you guys talk about that very heavily in one of the chapters, and that liberty is a very strong Christian principle, which flies in the face of a lot of people within Christianity, and even outside of Christianity. You think that Christianity is restrictive, and even a lot of Christians today think Christianity is restrictive. And I would say that the Republic as we once knew it, and I agree with your guys' assessment, the Republic as we once knew it was specifically as successful as it was because of Christian liberty.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you
So
partner with the Tomsky who might disagree with you
yeah.
about religion?
Yeah. I think I have quite a few friends that are either atheists or agnostics that are otherwise I would put them politically on the right, very firmly right wing, and most of those guys, even if they're not Christians, see the what they would term, I guess, usefulness or necessity of Christianity in Western civilization, and see what it accomplished in Western civilization. So I guess first I would point to that, and I would say I'm not going to you know try to or think that I can snap my fingers and you're just going to believe in Jesus and that's going to and that's going to happen like that. If even if you don't, I think you have to at the very least respect what um, what the Christian religion accomplished in the West over 2,000 years. I think that would be the starting point. I think if we could have agreement on that, where even if you don't believe it, if you don't you don't believe in Jesus, you don't believe he rose from the dead and so forth, I understand that. But you at least want the fruit of a people that did believe that, right? You want the liberty, you want the order, a well ordered society that's high trust, that um, that is capable of having liberty, that's capable of you want, people want the kind of like my town here in Wasika, used to be at least,
Yes, people.
was
He just
a
he just doxed himself. If
yeah,
you
everybody
could
knows where I live. Yeah.
if you could find if you could find Wasika, Minnesota, more power to you.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah. But my town, like, it was this idyllic small town where everybody leaves their doors open, and it was this friendly, warm, Mayberry in the north like environment. And people want that. They want to
Oh, for
have,
sure.
they want those things. And I think if we could agree that Christianity played a significant role in forming communities like that, even if you don't believe in what the Christian religion claims, we could certainly work together on several different things. I think I think at the end of the day, it's looking at, okay, it's kind of like, I'll talk to these Roman Catholic integralists. I don't know if you've bumped into any people like that.
You know what? You
Roman
may actually
Catholic,
have just thrown something at me I've never run
yeah,
into before, which
yeah. So
is
there's these guys. Oh, go
prize to
ahead.
you.
All right. Well, I get a free nice German beer coming my way, right? Um,
Stuff
and
next time I'm in Wasika.
okay. So it's this movement within Roman Catholicism among traditionalist conservative Roman Catholics that they want to turn America into this confessional Roman Catholic state, and like Spain or France or Italy once were, which I think is not a very serious goal, because America's never had this this majority Catholic, um, like, we've never been a majority Catholic country. So I think it's probably a pipe dream for America, for them. But anyway, like, that's what they want, and then they'll jokingly say that, like, yeah, if we had Catholic integralism, they'd burn me at the stake, for being a Protestant pastor and not recanting and so
So,
forth.
so
So they say
there
that kind
we
of stuff.
found common
So
ground. We found common ground.
yeah,
The Catholic integralist would burn you and
that's right.
Tomsky
That's right.
together.
Yeah,
They
that's
would
right.
burn you together. They see Tomsky, Andrew, and Tomsky can now burn together
Yeah,
while they're
yeah.
drinking warm English
Well,
beer.
that's right. Yeah. So that's my view, is that I wouldn't do, like, that's even 500 years into the future, we wouldn't burn atheists at the stake. We would, maybe we'd tell them, you should come to church sometimes. But that's
Tomsky
very
says,
nice.
"Let's burn, brother." Um, so before you came on, Andrew Tomsky, I laid down rules for anybody who wanted to super chat, in particular atheists from England, that whatever they started their super chats with, anytime they wanted to ask another comment or make a comment that was going to be read, it had to double. So Tomsky started with a £5 chat, super chat,
Yeah.
and then he went to a 10-pound super chat because he follows orders well, even though he's an English dissident. So he said the extremists in society aren't progressive; they are transgressive and want to go against societal norms.
Mm.
There's another word for that which you understand: sin. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I'm glad he uses that word transgressive the way he
Yeah.
did, because that's a very strong biblical word. We hear that frequently
Mm-hmm.
within the scriptures about transgressions.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
an actual, it really does mean to violate a norm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, and and so now Tomsky says, "You lot were the dissidents," and it's amazing that he brought that up, because that's actually a very poignant stream within the English Reformation in particular, which was the dissenting church in
Mm-hmm.
England was forced out of England because they were dissenters,
Yeah.
which ultimately did, and I agree with Tomsky, which ultimately did give rise to the
United States.
the American War for Independence,
Mm-hmm.
which predates 1776. I've said this to people so many
Mm-hmm.
times that this far predates 1776. Like
Yeah.
the English Empire had no idea what they were unleashing on the world when they allowed people to come over here to the North American continent and do whatever they wanted to do. Um,
Yeah.
they had no idea. Like, it was a crumbling of the English Empire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Um,
it was, and it was. It's interesting the interplay between religion and politics there too, because the Puritans leaving. I mean, this was a fight um, between different political classes or castes, even I guess you could say, is that you had in the southeast of England, and yeah, your friend I'm sure knows the history even better than me.
oh, he knows his
These
stuff. Trust me.
Yeah, the merchant class. I mean, these people basically were kicked out of society. The Puritans were out of mainstream society, and they had to build businesses and build wealth. And then they left all of it because it got the heat got uh, too much for them. I mean, they had to leave. It wasn't simply like, oh, they wanted to go to Holland and eat Gouda cheese and
Well,
things like that. They had to
well,
get out.
let's
Yeah.
address that part right there, because I think a lot of people do not understand um, that the Puritans did not first leave England to come to the New World. They actually were forced out of England into
Mhm.
exile in Holland.
Yeah.
And which is what really kind of gave rise to the Dutch Reformation, and really planted the seeds for the Dutch Reformed Church, were the English who went
Mhm.
to the Netherlands and uh, brought their dissident views with them, and then eventually went back to England. And England was like, "Okay, no, we've had it. You guys, we can't send you to Australia because you're not quite criminal." And I'm sure that Tomsky has criminal friends and family in his history somewhere, Tomsky, in Australia. But they kind of sent these weird Christians, like, okay, you guys, we'll give you a charter to
Mhm.
Roanoke. Well, we'll
Mhm.
we'll do. Um, he says, "Nah, we were Scots," which is basically synonymous with criminal. So, um, but the Reformation, the English Reformation, didn't culminate in the dissenters
Mhm.
coming to North America first. They did
Mhm.
travel across the channel into mainland Europe, into continental Europe,
Mhm.
before they came back to England, and then finally were forced out of England. And that spirit, it's not a spirit of rebellion. I hear people talk about this often, and you guys bring this up in the book, and I was glad that you did. We hear people talk about it often that America's revolution, the American Revolution, it wasn't a revolution. Uh, Tom Woods does a really good job of talking about this in numerous places, but it wasn't a revolution. And it wasn't a civil war. It was actually a war for independence. What we saw in France was an actual revolution. It was a bloody, uh, godless um, revolt against the norms of society. And what happened in North America, especially in what has become the Republic of the United States, was a war for independence built on Christian principles. And that's what sets it markedly apart from the French Revolution. And that has its roots in the first Puritans coming to North America. That's my perspective.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. That is one of the, I think, the main things that we've been mistaught. Is that, that these people came here, that they were these rebellious people that didn't want to fit in England. Like, no, they had to leave. They could not stay in England. They left not to revolt. I mean, it was with the permission of the king. They had a charter from the king to build these colonies, and they were building it was Massachusetts. Roanoke before it was the first. Massachusetts is the one that survived. Virginia as well. These colonies were like new countries, just like you have Scotland, Wales, England. It's like adding another country like that to the United Kingdom, and so that was the attitude of it. The perspective of it is that this isn't just a little tiny piece of England that's added on. This is entirely new nation that's founded by these people where they could practice this religion, and there's a reason they let them go there too as well, because they wanted them to leave. They didn't want them messing up the Church of England, right, and protesting against it and causing trouble. So I mean, there was and they were politically a problem as well. I mean, we don't know about this as well. I wish we did know it better, but like the English Civil War really matters as well. And between the Cavaliers and the Roundheads were the Puritans, connected to the people that settled New England, and the Cavaliers were the people that settled the Mid-Atlantic. And then you see that same kind of ethnic difference and fight play out in the American War between the states. The same lines were drawn, and in many of the same ways. And so anyway, like there's so much of American history that is interwoven with English history that's inseparable, really. And that's why I really wanted to focus in the last part of the book on the first 200 years of American history. I think is the most neglected part of American history that's taught to Americans today, because the neglect is palpable. Like they don't want you to know about it almost, because all of these places were explicitly Christian, right? All of these colonies were overtly, they're founded as Christian colonies. They were for Christian people. That's the entire point of them. And so you have this 200-year-long heritage, really from 1585 all the way to 1787 to the Constitution, where this is what they were operating under, is these explicitly Christian countries, where to hold office, to hold public office. I'm sorry for your friend Tomsky, but he wouldn't be able to hold public office in America from 1585 to 1787, actually till the mid 19th century, because they were Christian countries. He could live here. He could have all the rights enjoyed by American citizens, other than being able to hold public office. And so that is neglected a lot, because people want to think that like America began, and from the very beginning we had this secularist idea of a wall of separation is what the First Amendment means, and that the church, no Christian things could touch the government. They want people to believe that, which is a total lie. It has nothing to do with any of our history at all. It's a myth of the 20th century. Really, it made up in the middle of the 20th century.
Actually,
This myth.
I was just going to say the latter half of the 20th century, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's very recent. Like people have no idea. They think, oh no. Like I mean, even like in the 60s was the big fight over prayer in public schools, where it's like
Mhm.
for the first 250 years since the Constitution, people are like, well, that's just normal. That's what we do. We pray in school. We pray to Jesus. Okay, that's what Americans do. And now it's like, I can't believe they did that. They prayed in school.
Well,
my
and the
goodness.
irony of that, Andrew, too, is that at the same time, uh, we also have Christians that hyper spiritualize everything, which you guys address in the book, and you've already said here too. Like, we think about the Pledge of Allegiance, which, by the way, is not a very Christian thing.
It was a socialist thing, but yeah.
It was a socialist thing that God tacked onto it afterwards as a way to try and sanctify it. And people are all bent out of shape because, they want to take God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, it was never in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
And
not till the 50s. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, if you understand what was happening in the 50s, there's a reason why the Pledge of Allegiance was written and inundated into the government indoctrinations. I mean, schools. And we have a friend who's watching who might or might not work in some of those. And I know you know who I'm talking about. And she's going to kill me later. But there's just this, and that's one of the things when we keep picking on Tomsky, but that's one of the things I love about Tomsky as an atheist. He's never once, I've had literally hundreds of conversations with him, and I've never once, she goes, I laughed. I've never once heard Tomsky ever say Christians need to leave their Christianity out of their political views. And you guys do talk about that in the book, that that's the only religion in the United States where you are told explicitly by other Christians, leave your Christianity at the door when you run for office. No one says that to the Muslims. No one says that to the Jew. No one says that to the Hindu. No one says that to the Taoist or the Shintoist.
Yeah.
Christians, though, leave your Christianity at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw this with, I mean, you saw this explicitly, like the stark contrast in the Pennsylvania gubernatorial election, because Josh Shapiro, who won the election, had, tens of millions of dollars from FTX, apparently, paying for his campaign.
I'm so out of touch. I just figured out what FTX is today.
Yeah. It's going to be, you'll have to dig into that deep, because it's
as a military veteran, FTX is a field training exercise at the end of basic training. So
that's not it. Yeah.
Andrew, nope.
Yeah. So I mean, Josh Shapiro, extremely well funded. He wins. There was probably some fortification that went on last Tuesday as well. He is Jewish, and he made a big deal. All the media made a huge deal about how much his Jewish faith means to his campaign and his life in politics. Like, he brings his Jewish faith into politics. That guides how he thinks and what he does as a public office holder. So that's how they would treat. And there were multiple stories like that. It's like, oh, what a great guy. What a swell guy that has all these religious values. Isn't it great? And then you have Doug Mastriano, on the other hand, who's an evangelical Christian. And they would be saying, and he
staunchly evangelical.
Yeah. Openly. Yeah. Right. I mean, every rally, he'd have prayers at it. He'd have pastors speak and everything he did. And he would invoke the Lord's name in terms of, what is guiding him. It's because he believes in Jesus. That's why he is running for governor, things like that. And it drove them insane. And this was what drove, a part of what drove us to write the book even is the attacks on Doug Mastriano, and then of course attacks on Torba and Gab, is, because he's not allowed to be a Christian and hold public office, but his opponent can be Jewish and be publicly Jewish and say that his Jewish faith is what is how he makes decisions and what guides him in life and influences everything. That's totally, kosher, pun intended. Like, that's okay. but Doug Mastriano, no way.
You keep up with the humor and the sarcasm, and you may end up with a regular spot on my show. Tom, and see, this is why I love Tomsky, and he knows it. Agree that Christians are being attacked, and I've heard him talk about this. Our affiliation goes back a couple of years now, really to the beginning of my my personal fight. But he's over here, and I've heard him say that before. Let's get to, for lack of better terminology, the elephant in the political room, and let's address Judeo-Christian. Because I think we've all been guilty of that. We've all even in passing, and you've probably done it, even though you and Torba wrote the book. But we've all said it. We've all talked about Judeo-Christian values, and
part of our vernacular.
Right. And I think there's a place for it, because while Talmudic Jews definitely have a far different view of Christ, there is a reality where you're looking especially at Orthodox and Hasidic Judaism, where we do share a lot of the same values. It's impossible to ignore that. Reform Judaism isn't the same as Reform Christianity by any stretch of the imagination. No. And progressive Judaism definitely has nothing in common with really even Hasidic Jews or Orthodox Jews. But Judeo-Christian values is really a modern concept that has, boy, I'm about to lose people here. That's built on dispensational theology, which people have to understand in Christianese, Christian vernacular, dispensationalism is not eschatological. Dispensationalism, Darbyism, does have an eschatological perspective, but it is a systematic theology wherein the scriptures are interpreted systematically through the lens of Darbyism or dispensationalism, which is what gave rise to the terminology of Judeo-Christian values. And you guys address that rather heavily and kind of pointedly, like literally, like the guy's got one eye and you're over there going, I'm sticking my finger in your good eye.
Right.
It's not, it's like you don't pull punches on this. You believe that dispensationalism is an aberrant, unchristian perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to soften that at all necessarily, but I do. I would say Aaron.
If you want to distance yourself from me, like I got friends and family members that do that every day. So
yeah. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't necessarily distance it either. I would say, do I think like dispensationalists are not Christians, or do I think that they are, that the error means they're going to hell or something? No, I don't think that. But I think it's an error. I think it's an error that has caused a lot of problems for a lot of Christians and for our whole society. But I wouldn't be like, no, because you believe this thing wrongly, well, that's you're out of luck. So I don't necessarily think that.
You just said out of luck about dispensationalists who would patently reject the phrase luck. So
I know. That's right. So anyway, no, I mean, I think, so like the Judeo-Christian thing is, it's a modern term. It's not something, because especially like people are like, why do you have a problem with Judeo-Christian? Because our understanding of, we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is Jewish and the New Testament is Christian. So that's where we get Judeo-Christian. And it's like, well, no, like the whole Bible is Christian. Uh, and Judaism is actually rejects the Old Testament because they reject Jesus, right? Their holy book is the Talmud, and so it's, do they hold some of the things from the Old Testament, things like that? But yes, but not really, because what's the Old Testament about? It's about Jesus Christ, and if you don't believe in Him, this is what He says. Like, you don't believe in me, you don't believe in the law and the prophets. And so anyway, so some of it is we have to like kind of erase that idea from our heads that Moses and Abraham and Jesus, that they were Jewish, right? In the sense that we understand Jewish, like the Hasidic guys or the guys that go to the synagogue, today, or Ben Shapiro. It's like, oh, Jesus was Jewish just like them. It's like,
or
well,
Ben Shapiro. They're like, the Hasidic guys, the people who go to synagogue, or Ben Shapiro. So, like,
he's not Hasidic. I don't think he doesn't have the little things.
like, what kind of Jew are you? I'm a Shapiro Jew.
That's right. That's his own Dennis Prager, guys like that. But yeah, anyway, like the but that's a really touchy, difficult subject, because I mean, one, you see all the Kanye stuff or the Dave Chappelle thing, going on, where it's like everyone's freaked out about like ever criticizing the Jewish religion, like it's verboten. You're not allowed
Well, you guys dedicated a
ever do
chapter
it.
in the book to the ADL
I know.
and Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. Both the right and the left of Judaism, and that would say that would think like, especially Torba and is a bad guy, and he shows in there this is criticism of your religious views and the ideology based around your religion. It's not criticism of you ethnically or as a racial thing or things like that. This is fundamentally about what you believe, right? And what is wrong about what you believe, not, that we harbor some kind of, prejudice against, the way you look or something absurd like that. And so, but that's people want to like find something that they can attack you over, and say, oh, these guys are anti-Semitic. And it's like, well, if you read the chapter, actually, it's laying out this argument that no, the Bible, the Old Testament, that belongs to Christians, that the people of God are Christians, right? Not all Israel is Israel. Israel that believes is Israel, right? That's who's Abraham's seed, right? What does Jesus, say that, when they say, well, we're sons of Abraham, or what does Jesus says? He says, I can make sons of Abraham out of these stones, or God can make sons of Abraham out of these stones. Like that doesn't mean anything. And that's like most of the New Testament is this fight, this battle over people that say, no, you need to. I mean, this is what the whole book of Galatians is about, is people saying, no, you need to become a Jew first. You need to get circumcised and follow the dietary law of Moses if you want to be a Christian. And no, Jesus came and he's delivered, Jew and Gentile from that. And so, and made them into one. So that's like some of that is just like trying to at least open the door for people to unlearn a lot of the stuff we've learned, to show that this is something that's only 150 years old, and Christians for, almost, 2,000 years before that never believed any of those things. Because it gets really weird, because I'll have some people that will come to me and they'll be like, well, what about Jewish people? They don't believe in Jesus, but they're like really nice people, and they do a lot of good things, and they're really kind. What happens to them? And I'd be like, well, what happens to your buddy, Tomsky, if he never believes in Jesus? What happens to anybody else that doesn't believe in Jesus? What does the Bible say if you don't believe in Jesus, right? Why do we? But I think people are hung up on the fact that God made promises to this ethnic group called Jews. And so they think, because I think of a faulty interpretation of Romans 11:26, that therefore, if you don't believe, you still somehow get into heaven. Like there's a lot of people that of the dispensational stripe that think, well, if you're Jewish, even if you think Jesus is dead and in hell right now, you're going to heaven. because God made that promise to the Jewish people, and it's like that's not what Paul is arguing there at all. So I mean,
So
it's a lot of that. Yeah.
let's again, let's address the elephant in the room. Um, One of the things that has become synonymous with conservatism is Zionism. You guys even address it and talk about Biden talking to, being proudly a Zionist.
Yeah.
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 Tomsky, before I remind me where I was at, Tomsky wants to do a stream with you and me. I think that
Okay.
would be a freaking blast. It may only have 2 viewers, one of Tomsky's friends and you. But I'll set that up any day. Tomsky just has to drink warm beer with you. But let's address the reality of what I think is an incredibly dangerous perspective within. Bob says I'd pay to watch that. You would, Bob, because you are a glutton for punishment. Tunes in for every one of my shows with. Boy, everybody wants to watch that. We're gonna have to make that happen. Like all of a sudden, people are commenting besides Tomsky. One of the great weaknesses of American political persuasion is the Zionism of the American right, but even the American left. There is a very strong Zionistic perspective within both movements, and it has led to no end of trouble because we have allied ourselves with geopolitical Israel. And it has never done us any favors, ever. It has never done the United States any favors since the inception of Darbyism. America's affiliation and partnership with geopolitical Israel has never been good for us, ever. And I mean, if you go back to the USS Liberty incident, and I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
American affiliation with Israel led to them setting up the sailors and the Marines of the USS Liberty to be slaughtered to advance the cause of Israel in the Middle East. And I mean, I did a show with my co-host of Veteran Nation, Mike Arthur, where we talked to several of the actual survivors.
Wow.
Of the USS Liberty, and they'll tell you they have an adamant hatred for geopolitical Israel, not for Jews, but for geopolitical Israel. But in American vernacular, in the American Christian mindset, because of Darbyism, because of dispensationalism, you cannot ever speak against Israel, ever. If you speak against Israel, you're not even Christian.
Yeah.
And that plays a massive role in politics in the United States. How dangerous is that to Christian nationalism in your perspective? And can Christian nationalism separate itself from that in a way that is not anti-Semitic, genuinely anti-Semitic?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's why we wrote the book, and we had those chapters both on Judeo-Christianity and dispensational,ism, is because this is the major issue. Because a lot of the people that you see that show up to Trump rallies and to that support Marjorie Taylor Greene or Doug Mastriano, or all the people that kind of took on the label of Christian nationalist, they would be waving, the U.S. flag and the Israeli flag together. That was a common feature. You see this among a lot of, big evangelical churches that are somewhat politically engaged. When Michael Flynn and the Pillow, Mike Lindell, hold rallies, like they bring up a rabbi, they pray for Israel, and things like this, and like that's a major feature of American evangelicalism. And so if we're going to have a movement that is Christian nationalism, it can't be, it can't be Judeo-Christian nationalism, right? It can't be, right, this religion that doesn't believe in Jesus and this nation that explicitly is not Christian, that and has been a detriment to the United States in significant ways. I mean, it's just our foreign policy over the last 40 or 50 years has been an absolute disaster. I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars that has been spent in the Middle East and thousands of American lives, tens of thousands of American wounded, over especially the Iraq War is one that they just, why did we go? Well, a big reason why is because Israel wanted us to. This is a foe of Israel's for a long time that we took out. And so it's been really bad, but it's like this brainworm that is part of American and very conservative evangelicalism too, because you see like more liberal evangelicalism isn't as big into Zionism as the more conservative churches. And the more conservative Christians, especially the baby boomer generation, they're huge into that. So we're like, well, if we're writing this, we have to say something about this, because if it's going to be a movement, if this is a thing that's going to build and grow over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that we can really make happen within the church, it can't be that, right? And it has to boldly strike out against it and try to shift the Overton window where people can think, well, and rethink this view where, yeah, I've seen it where people will tell me, well, you're not a very good Christian if you don't support Israel, because God says those who pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and if he tells Abraham, those who bless you, I'll bless. And like, and I always step back and I'm like, well, think about that. We've been blessing the nation of Israel, the supposed children of Abraham. And how's that turned out for the United States over the last 40 or 50 years, right? We haven't really been blessed very much because of it, have we? We've been cursed. And because the true Israel is God's people, Christians. The country's been cursing us.
Christian Zionism in the United States has led to a blindness.
Yeah.
In the evilness, the wickedness of geopolitical Israel. You can't acknowledge the evil that they do. Like geopolitical Israel was intrinsically involved in September 11th of 2001. I'll try and remember to put links to the people that are talking about that in the description of the show. I say that all the time, and then I never get around to it because I work a full-time job, and I don't do this for a living. I don't get paid to work one day a week like some pastors do.
Some pastors, yeah.
Aren't you bivocational?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. I said bivocational, people. Bivocational. Israel has not been an ally to the United States Republic as the United States has continued to do everything in its power to protect and defend Israel from everyone else. They were intrinsically involved in covering up in September 11th of 2001. Israel has involved itself intimately in the events in Ukraine, sending Mossad agents to train Ukrainian military forces in subterfuge and torture. Former Israeli intelligence and special operations types, when it comes to intel and security, have been found to be working at places like Twitter and Facebook and shutting down free speech. And it's just an absolute travesty that when you point these things out to Americans who might be nominally Christian, and you guys are going to talk about this in the book as well, who might be nominally Christian. You can't say that. You're talking bad about God's chosen people. That's God's people. And 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 I'm like, no, I'm talking about geopolitical Israel. Yeah, that's God's people. And I'm like, okay, so you think God has two people?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many brides does Christ have? Well, he's got his chosen
One.
people, and then there's the bride of Christ. I'm like, they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And boy, when you tell people that the church existed before Acts, they really get mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tomsky, see, this is why I love my atheist friends. Has anyone thought that the state of Israel isn't the people of Israel? Yet, Tomsky, you have more sense in your head as an atheist than the average American Christian. Is that don't you think that's? I mean, what he just asked,
Yeah.
you could not
Yeah.
get an average American Christian to ask that question, could you?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Tomsky, you didn't super
yeah.
chat that. You're fired.
Yeah, that's the case. I mean, the
He says,
the
yeah, I'm kind of amazing.
yeah, I mean, the typical American Christian, they've been taught by most churches that the the Zionist state is it's God's people, that there's a second way to heaven, there's a second way to God besides Jesus, which is being Jewish. And people are able to hold these contradictory views in their head, especially because, like, if you ever say anything bad about Israel, then immediately, it's argumentum ad Hitlerum. It's
Did you
right.
just
It's
create
immediately
your own logical fallacy?
no. I did. It's someone. It's some for some. Yeah, I don't even know who came up with it first. But but that's what happens. Is immediately they're like, well, then you must love Hitler, and you must think the Holocaust was good, and you must think, and it's like, no, I just think that that Israel, like, if you examine, like, Israel, or even just like the Israel. I don't know if you've read the book by John Mearsheimer, The Israel Lobby. But I mean, it goes into how American foreign policy is dictated by people with dual loyalty between Israel and the United States. I mean, you see this with both parties. It probably won't make people happy to say this, because I mean, as nobody was a bigger Trump guy than me. But like, I mean, his presidency was dictated by this foreign policy in the Middle East by Jared Kushner and the state of Israel. Like, it's incontrovertible. Everybody knows this.
I have a particular power, right?
What's that?
When you say things like "no one's a bigger Trump guy than me," I can do that. I can do this.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like no one even wants to admit that, like, maybe one of the best presidents we've had, still his administration is dominated by this foreign policy, right? You're not able to get elected president of the United States,
and that's
without kissing the ring.
Zionistic policy. It's not an anti-Semitic statement to say that a particular administration, whether it's any of the Bush administrations or Obama administrations or the Biden administration or the Trump administration, they are dominated. Every single administration going back to the inception of geopolitical Israel has been dominated by Zionism.
Yeah.
It is not a republic-minded position.
No.
It is not a libertarian-minded position. It is not a constitutional originalist position. It's a violation of the Monroe Doctrine, which the United States should have never abandoned, ever.
Yeah.
It is absolutely not in keeping with American republicanism, and it is not in keeping with Christian nationalism. And if your rejection of Christian nationalism is strictly that it can't support Zionism, then you need to decide which side of the camp which camp you're in.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, if that's the sticking point for people, then, like, they've already got what they want. Like it's if supporting the nation of Israel is like the last straw for people, then they're already getting that with whoever is president. I mean, it could be a monster like Joe Biden, and they still get that. And so like I think that should be sort of a an eye-opening thing, is that no matter how evil the presidency is, the presidential administration is, how evil the Congress is, and all the evil stuff that they do, no matter what they do, right? They could kill 1 million babies a year. They could push children having their genitals taken off and young girls having their breasts cut out, right? They could do all the most evil stuff you can imagine, but they're never going to stop supporting Israel. Like, think about that. Like, that should be like a wake up call. Is like they have way more say over what our country does than American citizens do. Like, people should just understand this. And it's what George. I mean, this is stuff that Ron Paul ran on. This is why he didn't do as well as he really ought to have, is because he wouldn't kiss the Zionist ring, and he was critical of Israel. I mean, this is why guys like John.
Just want to give you a friendly warning, sir. Your libertarian roots might be showing.
Yeah, I know. I know, but I mean, this is what he would talk about. He would say, George Washington, when he was president of the United States, he's leaving, he's giving his farewell speech, and he says, "Don't have entangling alliances with foreign powers because they get you in all sorts of trouble." Well, what do we have right now? It's an entangling alliance that gets us involved in all sorts of things that are not good for our country, that have been disastrous for our country. And so, yeah, I think it's stuff like, the thing I always say to people is we should be open to re-examining everything on the table politically that we have been doing for the last 60 years, especially as Christians, that we have been doing for the last 60 years, because what we are doing right now, what we have been doing, is not working at all. And that should be one of the things on the table, is re-examining this relationship with the nation of Israel.
When you assess the political weaknesses and the strengths of the United States, and you look at the voting bloc that is ultimately dispensationalism or Darbyism in the United States, it does tend to break conservative. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a very fair. I mean,
yeah,
without delving into it and boring the crap out of so many people. Is there a way for the United States in embracing Christian nationalism? And that's, and I don't want you to rehash the entire book. I do want people to go out. I mean, I think I spent a credit on Audible for the book. It's a credit. And I think if you wanted to buy it in Kindle form, it's like $5.95 or something. Mm-hmm. It's if you guys want to buy the book and read it, and also spend $95 on my campaign for Dana, I will still honor the $15 credit for a merchandise purchase. I'm 100% serious, because I think even non-Christians need to read this book. I also think that Christians need to read this and really be challenged in their perspective, because we do run away from it. But in separating ourselves from the Zionistic perspective, how do you embrace people who have been Zionists, who have been dispensational Darbyists for their entire lives, and bring them along to walk away from it without slapping them in the face with the reality that even though they think they're conservative, they actually are taking a leftist perspective.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to go over well. And Tomsky's downgrading his super chats now. He's going the opposite direction. He did say, we need a great reset back to true liberalism and individual freedoms, anti-Klaus Schwab. Absolutely, Tomsky. Tomsky, you are
Yeah,
keeping the internet on this week.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
how do you get people to
hmm hmm
because and Andrew, not this Andrew, the other Andrew. By the way, if you can get him in connection with me, I'd love to have him on to have his perspective as well. Um, how do you move people away from their dispensational, Darbyistic, uh, perspective,
yeah.
their Zionistic perspectives,
Uh,
into a camp of Christian nationalism that recognizes you don't have to be Christian to be part of this movement. You don't have to be
mhm.
Christian to be part of a constitutional originalist perspective. But you do need to dismiss some of those some things that you might hold to and have held to for so long in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it is trying to uh, promote this idea among Christian people who are very conservative and who recognize that things are really really bad. Like, I mean, you turn on TV, you look at the news, you see things like just stuff that, I mean, if you told, like, I was telling my mom this a few weeks ago. I was like, you know, Ma, if I told you 10 years ago that the assistant health and human services secretary of the United States was going to be a man in a dress, and if I told you that
It's,
in
you
10 years
just you
ago,
went right there, didn't you?
yeah, if I told you that,
Right there,
yeah,
like
like if I told you that, like you would call the hospital and have them give me a nice injection and haul me away to a padded room. Like, that's what you would think I'd gone insane if I told you that, like, in the highest offices in our country will be people that look like Corporal Klinger. And so, like, and people would not believe me if I told
future.
you in 10 years, in
Future.
10 years in the future.
Oh.
And but like,
Is it life
um
imitating art or art imitating life?
I know. And so I think some of it is like getting people to think through. Well, maybe not everything I think is exactly right, or some of the things that I hold deeply to, I should be getting questioning a little bit, because we have to change some things, right? Even you know I, I think, and so I think some of it is just establishing, like, the main thing that we have to understand is, like, opposition to the things that are going on now, from the standpoint of Christians, right? Christians coming together and opposing these just absolutely monstrous evils that are taking place. And then we're all on board on that and all together there, or even 2 years ago, all of the COVID things, like fighting that stuff, right? Coming together that way. And then you can begin asking questions like, well, what got us to this point, right? What things in the church, got us to where we are today? What things should we do differently in the future? And if you can begin to get people to question that and think through, it wasn't always this way. Why did this happen? Are there some theological things that led us to adopt this very pietistic view that, well, whoever's in charge doesn't really matter, because Christians pursuing political power, that's bad, and Jesus wouldn't like that. His kingdom's not of this world. Right? What theological things really led to that? And led to that perspective, led to this being so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good. What caused this? And if you could get people to ask those questions, then the blow of, well, it's believing that the rapture is tomorrow and that Israel the Israeli state is good, and all these. Then people are a little bit more open to those questions if you're not, like, going right at their presuppositions first, and then you can say, like, look, things are bad. Why are they bad? Let's step back and think through some things that might have caused us to believe the wrong thing and cause some problems. That's kind of the way I try to. I mean, the book, it's hard because it's all right
Oh, it's
there,
a,
and it's
it's a
like,
gut
yeah,
punch.
yeah,
I dare anybody to read. I dare anybody to read it. Anyone. I don't care who
Mhm,
you are. I don't care what kind of church you go to. I
mhm.
dare anyone to read it and not feel a kick in the testicular regions. It's It's true. It is. It's just a kick. And and I'm going to be honest with you. I went into it going, okay, I'm going to have to push back at some point. And there,
Yeah.
and the more I listened and read, and people were like, that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
reading. I'm like, well,
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
um, it it gets the whether you're listening to it or holding it in your hands and reading it to yourself. It there is there's a weakness in American Christianity because we cannot be challenged,
Mhm.
and it it hurts people in their intellectual advancement because they aren't willing to be pushed outside of their comfort zones, which is goes back to the beginning of this conversation where we talked about you know obey the government, obey the
Yeah.
king, obey the
Yeah.
ruler. Well, when you push
Hmm.
back on that and you tell people that I had to do that, like
Hmm.
like I I would put together signs for people. Oh no, oh there he is. You must have got a call. Did you get a call?
No, my headphones went out. Sorry.
Oh no, um the the I used to make pallet signs, and I would love to do more of that for people. And I got a couple of people that asked, "Hey, could you make me a law enforcement one?" And I want on there, no greater love has man than to lay down his life for his friends. And I said, I won't put that on a sign for cops.
Hmm.
And they're like, well, why not? I said, because that's not about cops. Well, what about for
Hmm.
soldiers? I'm like, that's not for soldiers.
Yeah.
That statement's not for soldiers. That statement has nothing to do with being a cop. It has nothing to do with being a soldier. It has everything to do with the gospel.
Hmm.
And I've even now walked back, and I will not make a Romans 13 sign for people in law enforcement. I will not make a Romans 13 sign for people in the military because
Hmm.
I had to really do some reflection over the last 5 years and ask myself some hard questions about what does it mean to be submissive to government,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
what were Paul and Peter saying to us in that regard, in that respect? What did they really want people to understand? And the thing that we always have to walk away from is we're not told to submit to evil rulers. Ever.
Yeah.
You're never
Yeah.
told to submit to evil rulers.
Hmm.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I want somebody in the United States, and this is where we
Hmm.
might differ, to point out to me since, gosh, I won't even, I'm just going to go back to Lincoln. I'm going to go back to Lincoln and say Lincoln started a long line of wicked rulers with a couple of exceptions. And I don't believe we have a duty to submit to that kind of leadership. Period. And so I've even had to walk back Romans 13 and First
Hmm.
Peter 2. And Christians seem to be incapable
Yeah.
because of their ideological perspectives of walking back things like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It's have you read the book Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate by
Yes, like
Matt Trewhella?
755 times.
Yeah. That is really, I mean, really, really good work. Also, I'm going to give you another reading assignment too. My friend Stephen Wolf, he just
I didn't take
published.
orders from you. You're not my pastor.
I know, yeah, that's right. Well, you have to listen this time. My friend Stephen Wolf, he wrote a book on Christian nationalism as well, titled "The Case for Christian Nationalism," and he has a really good chapter there, walking through justification for quote unquote revolution when a Christian is justified in revolting against tyrannical rule. And it's a phenomenal chapter.
Didn't he who shall not be named amongst Christians? Didn't he really push that book?
Oh, does his name start with D?
And end with a W?
yeah. He did. Yeah, that's the same publishing company that he writes for.
He
Yeah.
who shall not be named.
That's right. The Voldemort of
The Voldemort of Christianity.
American Christianity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
I like him. So
yeah, no, he's great. Yeah. Well, he was my mentor. Actually, I was in Moscow for 3 years and studied under him. So that's why I am the way I am, is because of him.
You walked away a changed man, didn't you?
That's right. That's right. I certainly did. And so yeah. So Stephen's book, is fantastic. I wrote about it on Gab News recently, a review of the book, and really his argument there, I think, is really good. It's succinct. It's one chapter that just goes through the rationale and historical theology of when this was justified, when a tyrant actually becomes a tyrant, what conditions make a tyrant a tyrannical ruler that should be overthrown, even. And it says this because this is an important concept for Christians to understand, and because it doesn't discount Romans 13 or 1 Peter 2. It actually strongly upholds those parts of the Bible because it recognizes that authority is from God and that is limited, and that it can be borne in vain, and it can be wielded foolishly, where it can no longer be obeyed. It's actually a very high view of the authority that the ruler has to bear the sword. It's not a low view. A low view is like, oh, we don't really believe that. We do whatever we want. It's that, no, he has a duty to bear this sword, not vainly, and he is doing that, and that's wrong. And so, like, the Christian perspective on this, like, you would see this. You would see these people who would be like, if Donald Trump decided to close down the border and build a wall and stop mass migration into the United States, these people these Christians, certain Christians, would just lose their minds over that and think, well, we can't let this happen, blah blah blah. But then the second, the president says you need to take an experimental drug or not have a paycheck, well, it's like Romans 13. You got to follow what he says. You got to do what he says. Right? Just got to follow the law. Or if they want you to wear the mask or shut down your church, wear Romans 13. But anytime it's like any kind of like right-wing power is used by the state, we can't obey that. That's bad. So like these people are totally hypocritical. Like they don't actually believe Romans 13. It's a cudgel, like you said, to just smack around Christians that don't get with the program, and with the left's program. And so that's that's something that's incredibly important for us to recover, is a right view of how God looks at government and how God has instituted governments among men. Is not just simply for tyrants to do whatever they want with us and treat us like slaves, but to be men that wield authority in a godly way. So that is. I mean, I think I'm with you there, or at least most of the way. That I mean, there are these men that they wield their authority capriciously. I mean, you've seen, especially in the last 2 years, the things that they've been able to get away with and do are absurd violations of the state's authority. And I mean, people that say, oh, you can't criticize the government because of Romans 13, those people drive me nuts. They have for a very long time, back to my libertarian days and until today. Like I still have a soft spot, for the for the libertarians, because they have the right instincts, that things are not right, to recognize tyranny when they see it. They're absolutely right.
They do a better job of it than any Republican does.
Oh, certainly, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Do you say your mic quit working?
My headphones cut out, but then they came back. So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're having some like popping
Oh,
through
okay.
through your mic. So, are you using a laptop or a phone?
No, I'm just using the headphone mic that I have on here. But
That's very odd. It
yeah,
just
yeah.
ever since it disconnected or whatever on you, it
Oh, weird.
came back on. Yeah, so
Huh.
it's almost like it's communicating through a different mic.
Oh, it might be. Maybe I'll have to get closer. Right here. Can you hear me now?
No, please back up. That's kind of freaky.
Yeah, you see
And
all my
this,
nose
ladies and
here.
gentlemen, is why I am a professional. Um, we just put it all out there on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to improve your mic quality if we're gonna have you and Tomsky on.
Oh, will do.
Give give a brief synopsis of why Christian nationalism is not the evil, ethnic hatred, racist, bigoted machination that the legacy media, to include Fox News,
Yeah.
folks, get away from Fox News. Just period. It it's literally no further to the right than the other left.
Yeah. Marginally, very small. Yeah.
It's it's dangerous, and if you
Yeah.
think that you're getting accurate assessment of current events from Fox News, then I have a bridge I'd like to sell you.
Hmm.
The I-35 bridge in Minneapolis. Anyway, give us a brief synopsis of why Christian nationalism for Christians is the right perspective here in this time, in this place, and how people can best be motivated in that endeavor. And Tomsky does add another super chat. Let battle commence.
Very good. Yeah.
And Drew, I don't know. You must know a Drew. Is this Drew Bonner? It says doppelganger is trolling you, Andrew. I don't know who doppelganger is, but you'll have to tell me about that off.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so give me that
That's
synopsis.
hilarious. Oh man. So yeah, yeah. To begin with, I mean, yeah, they all the time they wanted to, like, anytime they did a story, it was like they'd have Christian nationalism, they'd be like white Christian nationalism, right? Because they obviously wanted to, like, connect, Christians being involved in politics with white nationalists, at Charlottesville or something. And so that's one of their tricks that they would constantly play, is like, oh, well, these two things, this must mean that you hate black people and you hate anyone who's not white. Like, that's one of the tricks they would play. They just lie. They just flat out lie about stuff. So that's one thing. And so yeah, I mean, we saw this, that decent, normal, regular Christian people who believe in Jesus and are tired of their country being destroyed and evil things being done in their country, were being slandered as like terrorists and like white nationalists. They're being lumped in with that, and I couldn't stand it anymore. And I said, like, well, yeah, we need to defend this, because that's what it is it's not anything more than Christian Americans or Christians in whatever country they're from, that love their country and care about their country and care about their neighbors and want their country to be a peaceful, stable, prosperous place. And the way to do that is for people to be obedient to Jesus and to live in the way that he says to do, for Christians to do that predominantly, and for our government to follow God's law. And so that's what it means. And so, but the thing is, like, you could see how much they screech over it, like demonically, because they can't stand, they can, like you said earlier, they can handle any other religion or non-religious people, which is a religion, like certainly is a religious view, influencing how they view things, and that be okay. But the moment that Christianity enters the discussion, it's over. You cannot do that. And so it's, my opinion, that it's the time for Christians standing by the sidelines and being allowed to be bullied by these people into inaction and into submission, that it's time for that to end. It's time for us to be bold, to say what's true unashamedly, and to say that things are wrong, and the way to make it right is to believe in Jesus and do what he says, right? From the top down and the bottom up, right? That's what it is. And so, people want to think it's big and bad and scary. Like it certainly can't be any worse than what we have right now. Right? It can't be any worse than that, where we're bathing in the blood of millions of babies, right? And we're up to our ankles in it. And there's not a thing that could be worse than that. We are in this totally messed up country, and people want to act like, oh, these Christians who want to be involved in politics, that's very dangerous. Like, think of the discontinuity between that, right? You see, like, your grandma's going to Trump rallies or whatever, waving American flags. That's a dangerous extremist. Meanwhile, right, people burning down cities, that's nothing. That's just a cool
what's
little
worse
protest.
than a grandma going to a Trump rally? A parent showing up at a school board meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Even worse. I know.
And heaven forbid that parent showing up at the school board meeting is also a teacher.
Yeah.
Because I know of a place where that may have happened.
Yeah, no, me too.
But I won't put that person on blast.
and not only that, like, you've seen this too, where parents will go, they'll have their kid check out a book from the school library that's pornographic, and then they'll go to the school board meeting and read it, and they'll turn their mics off, and be like, "You can't read that here. That's obscene. That's graphic." Yeah, and it's like, well, why is it in the library then?
If I read this on YouTube, I'm going to get a flag.
Yeah, exactly.
But when my kid checks it out from the school library, they get a flag to take with them. That's
yeah, it's certain flag. It's just, man, I know, and so I think it's so absurd, the lies that they tell. It's ridiculous, and so really, the basics, the long and the short of Christian nationalism is, it's okay to be a Christian, and it's okay to love your nation, and you shouldn't be made to feel ashamed of it. You shouldn't be made to feel like you're some kind of dangerous freak if you're a Christian and you're unashamed of being a Christian and want to live that out.
Well, you could be a dangerous freak and still be a Christian.
Like us, yeah.
Hey, I am my own kind of freak. Don't lump me into
with me. Yeah,
you lump me in with you one more time, and you're going to have to invite me to come speak at your church, and we'll see. I lost a bet. TC's coming to speak. One of y'all is taking him out for pizza afterwards. And cheap beer.
That's right. Oh, man.
Except Bree will beat me on carb count for the week. So, earlier when you mentioned drinking a Bang, she put in chat that she had warned you not to drink those anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, stop drinking them. I tattled on myself. Yeah.
That's what happens when you have a phys ed person in your.
That's right.
Where do you see? Do you think there's going to be a follow up to this book between you and the other Andrew?
Yeah, that's one of the plans, I think, is to have something about Christian nationalism in practice. What it means, going forward, because I think it's pretty clear that just we're not going to vote our way out of the situation that we're in. That there's a lot of other stuff that we have to do to get to the point where there will be change, where things will get better. It's not. You know this. I think most of the people listening to this know this. Is that, like, when the entire system is rigged against our people. So it's other than a few states, you're not going to be able to vote your way into power, right? That's the system is set up for our enemies to have power that way. And so,
Well, I would push back on that. I disagree in one perspective. I think that the current mindset is completely flipped about how you vote for power, and
Mhm.
and that is this top down approach, which is totally antithetical to republicanism, and not the political party, but republicanism,
Mhm.
which is uh, the federalist mentality of a decentralized, weak federal government subservient to the state, which was the federal state subservient to the state, and the state subservient to the county state, and the county state subservient to the municipal state, the city state. If we were to do what I have been saying for the last number of years, which is get people involved at the local level, get people running for school board, get people running for city council, get people running for mayor and county commission. We don't have to worry about what the state does and what the federal state does, because
Mhm.
you get these good solid candidates, whether they're Christian or not, but these good constitutionally minded, liberty minded candidates running for office and in office at these local levels. They'll, excuse the terminology,
Yeah.
but they'll kind of give the bird to the
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
call often higher offices,
Yeah.
and tell
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
take a flying leap at a rolling O, bro. We're not going to enforce that for you. If we could
Yeah.
get people to do that, then you
Mhm.
could have the power, because the power is where it resides, which is at the
Yeah.
local level.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've got,
Yeah.
but Christian escapism,
Mhm.
I hate Christian escapism, which is ultimately this
Mhm.
pre-tribulation rapture mentality of I'm going to
Mhm.
get out of here before all the trouble comes in.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be here, so it doesn't matter. Um,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
say, if we could get people to do that and say, hey, no, this is where the power is, then we could have power through the vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
But too many Christians, especially, think that you've got to have the presidency, you've got to have the
Yeah.
federal
Yeah.
House and
Yeah.
the federal Senate. If you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have those,
Yeah.
then you've
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck with that strategy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the stuff that that we're working on, and that I'd like to write for sequels to this and follow ups. Is that the way forward is not trying to get the presidency, which, I mean, if we get it, great, cool. But that's, I mean, you saw how that goes, even when your guy nominally has control of the White House. You're not able to accomplish anything. And so because like our whole country is screwed up from the top down and the bottom up, and so what we have to do is be able to wield power where we can in local communities. Yeah, like you said, taking over county commissioner boards, school boards.
And I mean
And
the
taking
phrase
over.
"take them over."
Yeah, yeah, not just like get a couple people on there, but like all the seats, your people, and all the seats in the city council, all the seats, but people that are loyal to your local community. I mean, that's stuff that we've been working on in my town. I've worked hard with people here to try to get them into office, and I ran for school board, unsuccessfully, along with a friend of mine, and because like we even though I don't have the time for it, I don't have time for these things, but nobody else is stepping up to do this stuff. And like that, so I decided I wanted to put my money where my mouth is, and step up to the plate and do it. And so like that's the stuff that we have to do. It's not, it's not try to go get elected, to the U.S. Senate from the state of Minnesota. Like, that's never going to happen. Like, what someone that thinks like we do, or is even remotely like us. But can you get a sheriff? Can you get county commissioners? Can you get a school board, city council, a mayor? Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can, and you can begin enacting things that are meaningful and important in your local community. And like a lot of the national politics stuff doesn't really matter quite as much. Like, I know my mayor's position, my mayor elect, his position on abortion, which is very good. But it doesn't in my town. That doesn't really like. There's not going to be a Planned Parenthood here being set up. Lord willing, that's not a very likely outcome. But at the same time, I want someone that's going to be friendly to, especially to Christians who will want to set up businesses in my town, because that has been a thing where people in general, not just Christians, have been harassed out of business because we've had a terrible city council. And so like that stuff matters. I want people, if I, in my congregation, if people set up businesses in my town and try to move their business here, or people move to my town to set up businesses. There's people that I talk to all the time that want to move to Waseca. And so I want them to move to a place where they can move things here and flourish here. And we could build like the place that I went to seminary, the town that I went to seminary. That's kind of the stuff that they were doing, even though they don't actually have much political control there in Moscow because of the university, which is very large and very powerful. It's been hard for them to get any elected offices, but economically,
make a lot of waves.
Economically, man, they dominate. I mean, they have so many businesses in that town, and it's driving the libs in that town crazy. And so, like, they have these big long lists. Don't go to this business. Don't go to that business. Don't go to this one. They're part of the cult. And so I'm like, God willing,
who will not be named.
Yeah. God willing, in 40 years, the work that I do in my town, we'll get to build something like that where the libs in town will say, don't go to that one. They're under the spell of Andrew Isker, and it is Svengali like magic, That's what they say about it. It's absurd.
I don't know that anybody's ever said those words ever, that you have Svengali like magic.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. And Doug doesn't either. Oh, I said his name. Oops.
And here is what I was waiting for. Christian nationalism is an oxymoron. Those who adhere to it need to read Acts 10, 34, 35. God is not partial, but in every nation, the man who fears him and does what is right is acceptable to him. That is a mischaracterization of what is said in Acts 10.
Yeah. Well, it's a question of, people have this preconceived notion that there are no distinctions, that nations are not a thing, right, at all. That all we have is globalism, and there's just one humanity, and it's all interchangeable, like a deck of cards getting shuffled. And that's not the way God built the world. It's the way Klaus Schwab wants the world to be, or
Christians,
Soros, and Bill Gates
have, as Tomsky had said earlier, you mentioned Schwab earlier. Christians have bought into the Schwabian worldview.
Yeah.
And they've tried to sanctify it through gerrymandering the scriptures, if you want to use electoral.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good way to use it. Yeah, it's true. That's what they do. And they try to make it like that. There's no Jew or Greek or male or female. We're all one in Christ. And it's like, well, that's true. Absolutely. We all belong to the same God. To the same God. We're all saved by the same Jesus Christ. We're all baptized into one church. All true. But Americans are not people from China. They're not people. They're not Japanese. They're not Saudis. Those are different peoples.
They're not English. They're not Swedish.
No,
we're American.
Yeah, we're Americans, and that's good. And it's okay to be American. Yeah.
And you can have Christian nationalism in China, and you can have Christian nationalism in Japan, and in Sudan, and in South Africa, and in Brazil. You can have those. Well, maybe not in Brazil anymore.
But too soon.
Just putting it out there. You have to get your kids to bed. I just wanted to give you a heads up that I will be reaching out to you and Tomsky. So make sure you find me on Twitter. I don't know how we connect on Twitter.
I will. I will.
Find me on Twitter so that I can get you and Tomsky scheduled for a Monday night musing where you guys just go. I'll just sit back and sip Um, and trying to control Tomsky's sipping at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's late. That's late.
And I also wanted to give you a heads up that I am in the works to have Rachel Wilson on.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So I know you know who
Oh
Rachel is. So
yeah.
she will
Oh
be coming
wonderful.
on after the first of the year of 2023. I did reach out to her, and she said, "Yeah, I'd love to come on, but I'm taking a break until after Christmas. So I'm going to be bringing Rachel on
Oh
to talk
wonderful.
about to talk about." I want to say this carefully because I don't want to alienate too many people ahead of time. To be talking
Until
about
after. Yeah.
we wait till afterwards, just like this show. To talk about feminism and why women, Christian or not, should be rejecting feminism. And she's the person to make that argument. She is phenomenal. And there again, I know you know who she is. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do.
well,
She's great. Yeah.
Olu said this again: if I meet a Japanese person who submits to Christ, he is my brother, hands down.
Amen.
Then no one disagrees with that. But that's
Amen.
not a refutation of Christian nationalism.
Yeah, I agree too. He's my brother. I've met Japanese Christians, and they are. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I think this is part of the concern.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to be kicking you off the stream here in a second because you have kids to put to bed.
We'll put a pin in this one and talk about it next time.
Yeah, this is exactly the problem, is that when you mention Christian nationalism, people immediately assume that you're rejecting anybody who's not American.
Everybody else. Yeah, exactly.
Like it's literally
not true.
Because
not
it's
true.
a fundamentally flawed understanding of what Christian nationalism is. And that's why Olu, there's a link in the description of this video. If you use Audible or you have $5 sitting around, forego a cup of coffee. And buy the book and read it.
You might like it.
And then after you read the book, buy some coffee from me.
Wonderful.
I am so good at this.
Awesome.
Andrew, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I really want to apologize for pushing you off from. We were supposed to.
No, it's okay.
Week, but last week's story, having Lisa and on, was incredibly important, but not necessarily more important than this. But it was timely important.
No, exactly. No, I get that. Very good.
So
really thank you for having. Thank you for having me on.
Go get your kids to bed, and I'm going to do a close.
All right. Good night, my friend. We'll see you.
Good night, brother. Take care. Olu Graphics, I would love for you to actually here. I'm going to do this. I would love to talk with you more. You can email me at which one of my 450,000 emails do I want you to send this to? You can email me at mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. Okay, Olu Graphics, I would love to hear from you. Maybe even have you on for a chat sometime about this, because I don't see you as an opponent. I see I see there's a divergence in what Christian nationalism is and how it's specifically only an American thing, and I don't see it that way. And I think it would be a good conversation to have. OG Snoop, Rachel Wilson is coming on. She has told me that she would come on, and I am in communication with her to get her on. I'm also working on bringing Michael Rechtenwald on for a conversation about another topic that's not related to this. But if you guys are interested in people who have a very strong intellectual mind on these conversations about a lot of these topics, be paying attention. We have a lot of stuff in the works. And as you heard, Andrew, is going to work on getting Andrew Torba from Gab on with me. And Andrew is also agreed to come back on and have a conversation with Tomsky. And I think that'll be a great conversation. One more reminder, my friends, my followers, subscribers, whatever the case might be, whatever label, I see you guys all as my friends, even the people that disagree with me. I am doing a fundraiser for Dana Stevens for her Give, Send, Go until the end of January, the last day of January. I have dedicated 15% of my income through super chats, my video streaming on YouTube, anything from Rumble as well, my Subscribe Star, and any merchandise sale will go to Dana. But I'm adding a layer to that. And I don't know if Dana will see this. I don't know how much of my stuff she catches. She does know that I'm doing a fundraiser for her. But if you are one of those people who donates $100 or more to Dana to help get her to her $3,000 goal, and I would like to see us push that higher if we could. If you are one of those people who donates $100 or more to Dana, it doesn't have to all be in one shot. If you do 25 one week and 25 the next week and 25 the next week, and you can verify with me that you have done that, I'm going to give you a $15 credit towards any of my merchandise, or basically a bag of coffee, and I will cover shipping on that as well. And I would really like to see you guys head over there and do that. I would much rather you go and spend that money directly than buy something from me to then turn around and then me give her 15% of that. 100% of a $100 donation is a lot more than my 15% ever would be. And I know how generous my fans and my friends and my friends out there in the real world really are, because so many of you have helped me. So I'm going to ask you guys now, if you've helped me, forego helping me and go help Dana. And here's the icing on the cake. At the end of this, the end of January, the person who has donated the most to Dana's cause is going to get a package of items from me. And if that means you did 101, you get that package. If you're the person who pushes that Dana over 3,000, there may be something in it for you as well. So please share the link to Dana's Give, Send, Go. The link is in the video description, because this is a precedent-setting case that Dana is involved in. I don't know if you guys can understand this. I'm gonna be working to have Dana back on my show, but we're going to be doing it as a Rumble exclusive, because YouTube takes down all of the stuff that we would talk about with Dana and others who have gone through what she's gone through. So please, once again, head over to Dana's Give, Send, Go Probate Attorney Fund. The link is in the video description. And donate. Once again, if you were thinking about buying something for me, go give to Dana. I would much rather you give directly to her. It's that important. And then show me, and we'll get you a credit, like I said, for $100 or more. I would like to be able to do it for the person who gives $5, but I can't. So I would really, really, really appreciate you guys heading over there and helping her. And I've done these before. I have done these foundational supports before. I did one for Ann Quiner when she lost her husband, Scott. I did one for the guys from 22 to 0. We need to help each other out in this day and age. And Dana is one of those that deserves it. It's really important. So it would be great if you guys could do that. I would consider it a personal favor to me. If you respect anything that I do or anything that I say, you can show me that by helping someone else. OG, I don't know what you mean. If there are any links besides YouTube for super chats, no, the only way to do a super chat is, or a super like or super thank you is through YouTube. They're the only ones that do that. So, yeah. Once again, friends, I've highlighted a few things that are coming up. I really appreciate everything. I hope that you guys have a great week. I'm doing an interview with a friend of mine named Keith Bissett tomorrow, which will be airing on Wednesday. Excuse me. That's going to be a really good conversation. Keith asked me to come on and tell my story, and I don't get asked that a lot, honestly. I tell my own story quite a bit here on my channel. I don't get invited to other people's channels to tell my story very often. The most recent one was Jorve from TNT Radio, who had me on here a few weeks ago, and he's a phenomenal guy. If you guys have never listened to Geopolitics and Empire or Jorve's show on TNT Radio, please do so. He is an incredibly erudite, scholarly man, and just does a phenomenal job with communicating issues of today. So once again, head over to Dana's. Give, send, go, and help her out in any way that you can. Let's get her to her goal and higher. And as always, please fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. And until next time, my friends, Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at